But you see, Doc, my brother here tries to blame that high level of inflation we recorded in 2022 on global factors. And he says President Biden. I'm surprised because he's an economist. So the fact that America records high inflation and Biden blames it on Russia means that if inflation is high in Ghana, then it is high because of the reasons Biden adduced for high inflation in America. Is that what you're saying? Well, yes, obviously, we are in a global village. Yeah. Global factors impact our economy. That didn't start today. You understand? And it is not the case that the factors responsible for inflation in America are the same as the factors responsible for inflation in Ghana. You see, let's make the thing simple. These are simple issues. Don't use economic jargons to obfuscate issues. Look, I'm going to demonstrate to you that what he said and most of the things you said that he disputed are totally false. Totally false. The reason why the government of Ghana said that budget deficit for 2020 was 10-point-something%, later on they revised it to 11.7%, is because they were cooking the figures. So the figures you are quoting here are cooked, concocted figures that didn't reflect our real deficit. I'm not saying it. Yeah, the IMF said it. Let me read that to you. If you are watching this show, Google this story. It's a Mindjaw online story. It was published on 13th April 2021 by Joy Business at 11:07 a.m. The headline is Ghana's fiscal deficit of GDP in 2020 was 16%, not 11.7%. IMF, yes, it's.
The 11.7 was below the line.
But why? But you would not accept that correction.
No, I told him to just check that thing.
Oh, Doc. His entire argument is based on this. And that is why he's saying that recklessness and mismanagement was not a reason for a high deficit.
That was a below the line reporting.
Look, cooked figures. Sometimes when we say the below the line, people don't understand. Hiding liabilities of government, which should be part of its deficit calculation. Please, if you don't understand the deficit, what we are simply talking about is the difference between government's expenditure as against revenue.
Not every government, revenue, domestic revenue.
Yes, every government is supposed to live within its means. And so if you don't live within your means and you spend recklessly far beyond what you rake in domestically as your revenue, your deficit is going to be high. That is going to increase your debt. And you will have to find ways, mainly through borrowing, to finance that. So if you spend recklessly, your deficit will go high and your public debt will go high. And if your public debt continues to go high to unsustainable levels, investors will lose confidence in your economy. When investors lose confidence in your economy, it will lead to capital flight. They will start taking their monies away. If they start taking their monies away, your cedi will depreciate. When your cedi depreciates, because your economy is largely import dependent, prices will go up. That is the cause of the inflation. It's as simple as that. So if you read the story, it says that the International Monetary Fund has contradicted government fiscal deficits of gross domestic product claim of 11.7% achieved in 2020, as its data shows that government financing gap was actually 16% of GDP in 2020. This made it one of the highest among low-income developing countries. Zambia followed closely with a budget deficit of GDP of 13.9%. The government in 2021 budget and economic policy said this fiscal deficit, that's the gap between revenue and expenditure to GDP, was estimated at 11.7% of GDP. But the fund's April 2021 fiscal monitor stated otherwise. It is also projecting a financing gap of 12.6% and 10.4% in 2021 and 2022 respectively. So you read everything. The World Bank explains that what they said was a lie. So my brother, stop quoting figures that have been exposed by the IMF, who are today supervising the management of our economy. In fact, they have appointed a headmaster with a whip to sit at our central bank to prevent the central bank from printing money. What you are sitting here justifying. They are there to ensure that there is zero central government financing by the Bank of Ghana. So if what you are saying, all the economic arguments you are making here, hold, they are true, why has your government signed a deal with the IMF that henceforth we will be good boys? We will not print money again. Why? All these economic justifications you are making. Why didn't they make that? Why have they now committed to zero financing of the central government? Why?
No, but we all know that even the financing allowed by law was breached.
Was breached.
Know, yeah.
You can finance the government. Okay. Now he himself said that the printing of the money comes about as a result of the need for the central government to assist, the central bank to assist government finances deficit. So if the deficit was not 16%, okay, there wouldn't have been the need for the Bank of Ghana to print 42 billion cedis in 2022 and 35 billion cedis in 2021. So the cost is the deficit. And what is the cost of the deficit? The reckless expenditure Bawumia and the MPP engaging in 2020. When under the guise of COVID, for election purposes, they engage in reckless expenditure. They distributed borrowed funds to party apparatchiks like biscuits. Why? Felicia Tete, their Sagderigo parliamentary candidate and vice chair for the MPP Northern Region, is on tape. If my brother, maybe he was in South Africa by then, he has not listened to the tape, I'll share it with him. On tape saying that parliamentary candidates were given 2,200,000 new Ghana cedis COVID funds, all of them. Constituency chairman, 50,000. District chief executives, 50,000. Constituency executives, 30,000. The least an executive member got was 10,000 cedis. This is the confession of a beneficiary of the loot. You can't overlook it. You can't dispute it. Look at the COVID-19 expenditure audit report by the Auditor General. Look at the kind of reckless expenditures they engage in. They paid 37.4 million for free water. The Auditor General asked them for water bills. They had none. They paid in total 15.6 million cedis for hot meals. That's 156 billion cedis. The Auditor General asked them. In some cases, they didn't have receipts, only honor certificates. In other cases, no receipt, no honor certificate. They just said we spent the money. No evidence.
It was an emergency.
Oh, so even an emergency, when you are buying food at Jufel will not give you a receipt. Me, when I go to Jufel, 2020, when I went to Jufel, because this is one of the restaurants they say they source hot meals from. Why? Okay, so tell me this. What about the 14 million cedis they gave to a company, Modern Securities Printers, to train SHS students on COVID-19 safety protocols? Something the teachers in those schools could have done for free. The company took the money, never did the job, according to the Auditor General. 40 million cedis. What about that? What about the $271,000 the Auditor General says was used to buy medical equipment, which was diverted, sold, and they chopped the money? What about that? You go and look at that report, it stinks to the high heavens. So the problem was that they used COVID as a ruse to spend recklessly for election purposes. They were sending Momo left, right, center to people just to buy the election. And the result was a 15.6, now according to the IMF, 16% deficit. That was not because of the things Biden spoke about in America. It was not because of Putin. 2020, Putin had not even gone to war. That high deficit was chopped in 2020. The Putin war in Ukraine was 2022. Yes.
To 2022.
But the source of the problem was 2020 budget deficit. You understand? Then he says that, okay, so let's subject what he's saying to common sense analysis. Forget the economic jargons. He says that high inflation of 54% that we achieved was not because of the printing of the money. Well, the Bank of Ghana has said that it is because the central bank refused to tighten monetary policy. And if you want, I can read that story to you.
Yeah, but Sammy, what is monetary policy?
If you want. In fact, even Addison has come out to say that he doesn't look. After the Bank of Ghana fingered them, when the Bank of Ghana fingered them as being the cause of the hyperinflation we reach, Addison came out. Don't blame us for worsening inflation rate. Bank of Ghana tells World Bank. It is here.
So what has
and if you read the story, he doesn't give, all he says is that don't blame us. He doesn't give any reason why they should not be blamed.
But the World Bank blamed the central.
The World Bank blamed them. And that is why the World Bank said that because of their recklessness in over-financing government through the illegal printing of money, 850,000 Ghanaians were pushed into poverty in 2022 alone. This is a serious matter. The World Bank said it. And I have read the story trying to look for one cogent. All he said was that, look, let me read what is in quotation. The Bank of Ghana has refuted the World Bank's assertion that it is responsible for the increasing rate of inflation in the country. According to the central bank, it cannot be blamed for the rising inflation, which affected various goods and services. Then, what is in quotation mark? Let me read that. They are of the other view that the monetary policy tightening is the way to go, except that we are late by the assessment, which I also disagree with, because if I recollect, we started this policy tightening as far back as November 2021. It wasn't in January that we logged out of the market. He was just saying that because Ghana was locked out of the capital market and we could not go on the Eurobond market to borrow money, they had to come to government's aid to finance their deficit. And so even though the law says don't do more than 5% of the total revenue of the previous fiscal year, they did more than 20-30%, printed money illegally, criminally. And that is what the World Bank is saying. So if you want to debate the World Bank, debate the World Bank. If you want to debate the IMF, debate the IMF on what the deficit figures are. But at the end of the day, at least your government has accepted. They have gone there. They have now signed an agreement to be of good behavior. The IMF now has given them a police officer, or if you like, a headmaster with a cane, ensuring, sitting at the central bank, ensuring that they don't print money again. So no matter of economic jargons can change that fact. And you see, if it is true that what we recorded in 2022, that hyperinflation of 54%, was because of some global factors. Only because of global factors. That is what they make it look like. We are not saying that global factors were not parts. But we are saying that, aside that, the major reason was because of the reckless expenditure and the mismanagement of the economy. And Kwaku Kwate, who at some point was a deputy minister.
Yes.
Good. And until recently was the chairman of the NPP's finance committee in Parliament.
No, Parliament's finance committee.
Parliament's finance committee. Kwaku Kwate, what has he said? He said the NPP stop lying. He's telling our, he said stop that. Stop blaming everything on COVID and Russia. That's Kwaku Kwate. He's been part. He was part of the economic, the team of the NPP managing the economy. He knows. He says that, look, it's not only because of global factors. We've been reckless. Kwaku Kwate said that. And if you compare the inflation rate of other African countries in 2022, our 54% was the third highest. So how come that these factors you are talking about, a jumped Cote d'Ivoire, a jumped Burkina, a jumped Togo, a jumped Nigeria, you understand? Because in 2020, our inflation rate was even far higher than that of Nigeria. How did they jump all these countries? So don't be citing Biden as an economist. What Biden has said about inflation in America as a result of Putin's war, to come and justify the hyperinflation we chalked in 54% in Ghana. What you did is not the same as what the American government did. And there are significant differences. Don't even go there. Your own MPs, even when they saw that the problem was a mismanagement problem, came together, all of them, and said the finance minister had to go. Ken must go. You remember? If it was because of global factors, why did they say that Ken must go? Because they knew that aside the global factors, there was an element of recklessness and mismanagement. And so, Doc, look, the bottom line, like my national youth organizer said, boys they holler, girls they tire. People are suffering. And this marginal reduction in inflation, although good, will not bring about the relief Ghanaians are looking for, because prices will still be high. It is only the rate of increase which has slowed down. Aside that, there are other factors, because when you are discussing the state of an economy, you are not just looking at the inflation rate. Look at the exchange rate today. Today you need almost 16 cedis to get $1. Imagine the impact of that on businesses, on people's lifetime savings. Imagine 16 cedis. You understand? So we are not out of the woods yet. And when our friends come on platforms like this, they must acknowledge that and stop trying to make flimsy excuses, okay, for their own recklessness and mismanagement, which has plunged us into this mess. We were not supposed to get to that hyper level of inflation rate of 54% in 2022 if they had not engaged in the reckless spending they engaged in 2020 and 2021 and 2022.
Right.
In spite of the global factors, inflation would have still been significantly low, like it was in most of the African countries surrounding us, if they had been responsible and prudent in their economic management.
Right.